The warning lights on the bridge turned red as Admiral Zexthara stared at her screens. Something was wrong, very wrong. The readings made no sense at all. Her 3 yellow eyes blinked slowly as she tried to understand what her sensors were telling her. "This can't be right," she whispered, her blue skin turning pale. The Vorthic Empire had ruled this part of space for over 2,000 years. Their technology was the best in the galaxy. Their ships were feared everywhere. Nothing should be able to hide from their sensors like this, but there it was. A ship, sitting at the edge of the Kepler 442 system like it owned the place. The energy readings were impossible. The ship was giving off power signatures that didn't match anything in their database, and their database had information about every known species in the galaxy. "Commander Rextall," she called to her second in command. "Run the deep scan again. Something's not working right." Rextall, a younger Vorthak with scars from the border wars, looked nervous. "Admiral, I've run it 3 times already. The readings are the same every time. That ship, it's like nothing we've ever seen before." Zexthara felt a chill run down her spine. She had been in the Imperial Navy for 40 years. She had fought pirates, rebels, and enemy fleets. She had seen every type of ship the galaxy had to offer. But this thing floating in space near that yellow star was different. It was wrong somehow. The ship was huge, about 2 kilometers long, which made it bigger than most Imperial battleships. But size wasn't what worried her. It was the way space seemed to bend around it. Their gravitational sensors were going crazy. The ship was doing things to gravity that should have been impossible. "What's the quantum signature reading?" she asked, though she was afraid of the answer. "That's the strangest part, Admiral," Rextall replied, his voice shaking slightly. "The signature doesn't match any known species. It's not Centauri, it's not Andromedan. It's not even close to any of the minor species we know about." The bridge fell silent except for the soft humming of their ship's engines. Every officer on duty was staring at the main screen, watching the mysterious vessel that shouldn't exist. Zexthara could feel the fear spreading through her crew like a disease. She had been taught since childhood that the Vorthic Empire was supreme. Their bioships, grown rather than built, were the most advanced vessels in known space. Their weapons could crack planets. Their shields could stop anything. The Empire had conquered 17 star systems and never met their match, until now. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Kexmora from the communications station, "I'm picking up something else. The ship, it's scanning us?" "Scanning us?" Zexthara's voice rose higher than she intended. "How is that possible?" "Our stealth systems are active. Nothing should be able to detect us at this range." But even as she said it, she knew it was useless. Whatever that ship was, it clearly had technology that made their stealth systems look like children's toys. The thought made her stomach turn. The Empire's power came from having better technology than everyone else. If someone had built ships that were even more advanced— "Admiral," Kexmora said, her voice barely above a whisper, "they're sending us a message." The bridge went completely silent. Even the ship's computers seemed to stop humming. Zexthara stared at the communications officer, not sure she had heard correctly. "A message? What kind of message?" It's in perfect Vorthak, Admiral. They're speaking our language like they've known it their whole lives." Zexthara felt the blood drain from her face. Learning Vorthak took years of study. Their language had complex grammar rules and over 40 different tenses. Only a few alien species had ever managed to learn it properly, and that was after decades of contact with the Empire. "Play it," she ordered, though her voice came out. As barely a croak, the message filled the bridge with a voice that sounded strange but oddly familiar. The accent was wrong, but the grammar was perfect. Too perfect. "Vorthak vessel, we come in peace. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions in this system." The message was polite, almost friendly, but there was something underneath. The words that made Zexthara's skin crawl. Something that reminded her of old stories, legends she had heard as a child but never believed. "Admiral," Rextall said slowly, "that voice, Does it sound familiar to you? Sexthara nodded, though she didn't want to admit it. Deep in the back of her mind, something was stirring. Old memories from history classes. Stories her grandmother had told her about the ancient wars. Tales of a species that had challenged the Empire long ago, but that was impossible. Those stories were just myths. The species in question had destroyed themselves in nuclear fire hundreds of years ago. Everyone knew that. It was in all the history books. "Computer," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Access the restricted historical archives." Authorization: Admiral Zextara, clearance level 9. "Archives accessed," the computer replied in its emotionless voice. "Search for any references to extinct species with similar vocal patterns to the current transmission." The computer worked for several long seconds. When it spoke again, the words hit the bridge like a physical blow. "One match found. Species designation: human. Status: extinct. Last confirmed contact: 847 standard years ago. Homeworld: destroyed by nuclear warfare. Estimated survivors: 0. But if humans were extinct, what was that ship doing there? And how did they know perfect Vorthek? More importantly, how had they built something that made Imperial technology look primitive? Zexthara remembered the old stories now. Humans had been different from other species. They didn't have biotechnology like the Vorthek. They didn't have psychic powers like the Centauri. They were just clever, too clever for their own good. According to the histories, the war against humanity had been brief but terrible. The humans had fought with weapons that bent the laws of physics. They had ships that could appear and disappear at will. They had tactics that no one could predict or counter. The Empire had won, of course, they always won. But the victory had come at a terrible cost. Entire fleets had been lost. Whole worlds had been abandoned. In the end, the only way to stop the humans had been to let them destroy themselves with their own weapons. At least, that's what the history book said. "Admiral," Kexmora called out, breaking her thoughts. "They're sending another message." This time the voice was different. Still speaking perfect Vorthek, but there was steel underneath the politeness now. "Vorthek vessel, we are aware of your presence. We have no hostile intentions, but we will defend ourselves if threatened. We suggest you contact your superiors before taking any aggressive action." The threat was clear, even though it was delivered politely. Whatever species was on that ship, they weren't afraid of the mighty Vorthek Empire. They were giving warnings, like they had the power to back them up. Zexthara looked at the readings again. The ship was still sitting there calmly, but she could see now that it was charging some kind of weapon system. The energy buildup was massive, far beyond anything she had ever seen before. "Rextal," she said quietly, "send a message to Imperial. Command, tell them we've made contact with an unknown species. Tell them ... She paused, trying to find the right words. "Tell them we might have a problem." As her ship prepared to retreat to a safe distance, Zexthara couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. The Empire had ruled the galaxy for so long that they had forgotten what it felt like to be afraid. Now, staring at that impossible ship with its impossible technology, fear was all she could feel. And somewhere in the darkest corner of her mind, a terrible thought was forming. What if the humans hadn't destroyed themselves after all? Captain Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus, watching 3 alien warships approach through the main viewport. After 500 years of hiding, humanity was finally ready to show itself to the galaxy again. But Elena knew this meeting would be nothing like what the aliens expected. "Captain, the Vorthek ships are maintaining diplomatic formation," reported Commander Park from his station. "They're following standard first contact protocols?" Elena almost smiled. Standard protocols? The aliens had no idea what they were dealing with. While the galaxy had spent centuries believing humans were extinct, her people had been busy. "Very busy. How long until they're in range?" she asked. 3 minutes, Captain. "Their lead ship is the same class that tried to genocide our homeworld." Elena's jaw tightened. She had grown up hearing stories about the Great War, how the Vorthek Empire had tried to wipe out humanity when they realized humans were becoming too powerful, how Earth had burned under nuclear fire, how the survivors had fled to the darkest corners of space to rebuild and grow strong. The Prometheus was the result of that long journey. 2 kilometers of advanced technology that would have seemed like magic to the humans who first left Earth. Elena's ancestors had learned hard lessons about survival. They had also learned never to trust the galaxy's so-called civilized species. "Incoming transmission, Captain," called Lieutenant Chung from communications. "The lead ship is requesting to speak with our commander. Put them through." The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the alien vessel. Elena had seen Vorthak before in historical records, but meeting one face-to-face was different. Admiral Zexthara stood tall with blue skin and 3 yellow eyes that seemed to look right through her. The alien's expression was carefully neutral, but Elena could see the tension in her posture. "Unknown vessel. This is Admiral Zexthara of the Vorthak Imperial Navy. Please identify your species and state your business in this system." Elena stepped forward, making sure the alien could see her clearly. "Admiral, this is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the United Earthship Prometheus. We represent humanity." The effect was immediate. Elena watched as the Admiral's 3 eyes went wide with shock. The alien's blue skin seemed to turn pale as she processed what she had just heard. Behind her, Elena could see other Vorthak officers turning to stare at their screens in disbelief. That's impossible," Admiral Zexthara whispered, though the microphone picked up every word. "Humans are extinct. Your homeworld was destroyed centuries ago." "Reports of our death have been greatly exaggerated, Admiral," Elena replied calmly. "We've been away for a while, but now we're back." Elena could see the alien admiral struggling to process this information. The Vorthak had built their entire empire on the belief that they were the most advanced species in the galaxy. Learning that a supposedly extinct race had not only survived but built ships like the Prometheus had to be devastating. "Commander Park," Elena said quietly, "are they scanning us?" "Yes, Captain. Deep scans on all frequencies. They're trying to figure out how our technology works." Elena nodded. "Let them scan." The Prometheus was designed to reveal exactly as much as humanity wanted to show. Right now, that wasn't very much. "Admiral," Elena continued, "I suggest you contact your superiors before this conversation goes any further. I think they'll want to know about this personally." "On the screen, Admiral." Zexthara seemed to shake herself out of her shock. "Captain Rodriguez, with respect, your people were destroyed in nuclear warfare. We have historical records. We have sensor data from your homeworld. How do you explain this?" Elena's expression hardened. "You have records of what you wanted to?" "See, Admiral, the truth is somewhat different." She gestured to Commander Park, who began entering commands into his console. Elena had decided it was time for a small demonstration. Nothing too dramatic, just enough to make a point. "Admiral, your scans are probably showing you that this ship is somewhat more advanced than your vessels. I want you to understand that. The Prometheus is not a warship, it's an exploration vessel. We have other ships for warfare." Elena watched as the alien's expression changed from confusion to concern. "What do you mean?" Instead of answering directly, Elena nodded to her helmsman. "Lieutenant Torres, activate displacement drive. Short-range jump. Let's move to the other side of the system." "Aye, Captain." Elena had seen this demonstration before, but it never got old. One moment, the Prometheus was floating in space near the Vorthak ships. The next moment, it simply wasn't there anymore. The ship had moved instantly across the entire star system, appearing near the outer planets without any visible means of propulsion. Through the communication link, Elena could hear alarms going off on the Vorthak bridge. She could see Admiral Zexthara spinning around, shouting orders to her crew. The alien ships immediately broke formation and began powering up their weapons. "Admiral," Elena said calmly, as if nothing unusual had happened, "I hope that demonstration was educational. As I said, this is not a warship." The alien admiral turned back to face the screen, her 3 eyes blazing with a mixture of fear and anger. How did you do that? That kind of instantaneous movement is impossible. Impossible for you, perhaps. Humanity has had 500 years to develop new technologies. We've learned to do many things that others consider impossible. Elena could see the wheels turning in the Admiral's mind. If a human exploration ship could move instantly across a star system, what could their actual warships do? It was a good question, and Elena was happy to let the alien wonder about it. Captain Rodriguez, Admiral Zexthara said slowly, "What do your people want?" "That's a complicated question, Admiral. For now, we want the galaxy to know that we're back. We want everyone to understand that humanity survived your empire's attempt to destroy us. And we want to make sure that nothing like that ever happens." Again, the threat was subtle but clear. Elena could see the Admiral understood it perfectly. The Vorthak Empire had tried to commit genocide once. If they tried again, they would find that humanity was no longer the weak species they remembered. "I need to contact my superiors," Admiral Zexthara said finally. "Of course. Take all the time you need, but Admiral?" Elena paused, making sure she had the alien's full attention. "I suggest you be very careful about how you report this encounter. Some members of your government might think they can solve this problem the same way they tried to solve it before. That would be ... unwise." Elena watched as understanding dawned in the Admiral's eyes. The alien was clearly intelligent enough to realize what Elena was really saying. If the Vorthak Empire decided to attack humanity again, they would discover that the humans they remembered no longer existed. In their place was something far more dangerous. "The communication link is being terminated from their end, Captain." Lieutenant Chun reported. "Expected," Elena replied. "Commander Park, take us back to our original position. Nice and slow this time. Let them watch every move we make." As the Prometheus moved gracefully through space using conventional engines, Elena thought about what would happen next. The Admiral would contact her superiors. Those superiors would panic. Emergency meetings would be called across the Vorthak Empire as they tried to figure out how to deal with this impossible situation, and while they were panicking, humanity would continue with the plan they had been developing for centuries. The Prometheus wasn't alone out here. There were other human ships scattered across the galaxy, all waiting for the signal to reveal themselves. The galaxy was about to learn that the species they thought they had destroyed had not only survived, but had grown into something they couldn't imagine. Elena almost felt sorry for them, after all. The Vorthak had made their choice 500 years ago, when they decided that humanity was too dangerous to be allowed to exist. Now they were going to discover just how right they had been. About that danger, the only difference was that this time humanity was ready for them. The emergency council meeting began at midnight on Vorthak Prime, but no one was sleeping anyway. High Chancellor Mordith sat at the head of the massive stone table, his 3 eyes bloodshot from hours of reading reports that made no sense. Around him, the most powerful beings in the Vorthak Empire argued in hushed, frightened voices. "This has to be some kind of trick," insisted General Kexvar, the Empire's top military leader. "Humans destroyed themselves centuries ago. Everyone knows this. It's historical fact." "Then explain the ship," snapped Intelligence Director Vexanala. "Explain how they moved across an entire star system in the blink of an eye. Explain how they spoke perfect Vorthak." Mordith raised his hand for silence. In his 40 years as High Chancellor, he had never faced a crisis like this. The Vorthak Empire ruled 17 star systems. Their bioships were the most feared weapons in known space. They had conquered every species they had ever encountered, but the readings from Admiral Zexthara's encounter told a different story. A story that threatened everything the Empire believed about itself. "Dr. Velmaya," Mordith said, turning to the Empire's chief historian. "You've had 6 hours to review the restricted archives. What did you find?" The elderly Vorthak scholar looked tired and frightened. Her hands shook as she activated a holographic display that filled the center of the council chamber. Ancient text appeared in the air, written in old Vorthak script that few could still read. "Honored Chancellor," Dr. Velmaya began, her voice barely above a whisper, "I found things, terrible things. Things that have been hidden from the public for 8 centuries. The room fell silent. Even General Kexvar stopped pacing to stare at the floating words. The official histories we teach our children are lies, Dr. Velmaya continued. The humans didn't destroy themselves in nuclear warfare. We destroyed them, or at least we tried to. Gasps echoed around the chamber. Mordith felt his stomach. Drop, explain. Dr. Velmaya touched the display, and images began to appear. Ancient star charts, battle reports, casualty lists that went on for pages. The Terran conflict lasted 3 years, she said. It began when our expansion fleets encountered human settlements in the Outer Rim. At first, we thought they were just another primitive species. We were wrong. New images appeared. Ships that looked nothing like traditional Vorthak biovessels. Strange, angular craft that seemed to bend space around them. Human technology was different from anything we had seen. They didn't grow their ships like we do. They built them using principles we didn't understand. Still don't understand. General Kexvar leaned forward. But we won. We always win. Did we? Dr. Velmaya asked quietly. Look at these casualty reports. In 3 years of fighting, we lost over 200 capital ships. Entire fleets simply vanished. The humans were fighting with weapons that made our bioships look primitive. More. Images filled the display. Battle scenes that looked more like disasters than victories. Vorthak ships exploding, being torn apart by weapons that left no trace of how they worked. How did we win then? Asked Intelligence Director Vexen ALA. Dr. Velmaya's voice grew even quieter. We didn't win through superior firepower, we won through other means. She touched the display again. A single document appeared, marked with the highest security classification the Empire had. Mordith read the title and felt his blood turn cold. Project Final Solution, the sterilization of Earth. No, General Kexvar whispered. That's not possible. The humans destroyed themselves with nuclear weapons. Everyone knows that. The nuclear bombardment of Earth was carried out by Imperial forces, Dr. Velmaya said, her voice breaking. We didn't just defeat the humans. We tried to exterminate them completely. The chamber erupted in chaos. Voices rose in denial, anger, and fear. Mordith slammed his fist on the table, calling for order, but inside his mind was racing. If the humans had survived the Empire's attempt at genocide, if they had spent 8 centuries growing stronger while hiding in the dark corners of space, ... how many survived? He asked when the room finally quieted. The reports estimate that perhaps 10% of the human population escaped Earth before the bombardment. Maybe 1 million individuals scattered across dozens of colony ships. 1 million people, Vexenala said slowly. After 800 years, could be billions now, General Kexvar finished. Billions of humans with technology we can't understand. Who know exactly what we tried to do to them? Mordith stood and walked to the great window that overlooked the imperial capital. Millions of Vorthak citizens were sleeping peacefully below, confident in their empire's power. They had no idea that everything was about to change. The ship that Admiral Zexthara encountered, he said without turning around, it demonstrated capabilities beyond our understanding. If that was just one ship, there are others, Dr. Velmaya said softly. The archives mention something called the Deep Fleet. Human ships that disappeared into dark space during the final battles. Ships we never found. The implications hit everyone at once. If humanity had been building ships in secret for 8 centuries using technology the Empire still couldn't understand, then the balance of power in the galaxy had already shifted, dramatically. Sir, a young aide burst into the chamber, breaking protocol. Emergency transmission from the Outer Rim. 3 more unknown ships have appeared. They're using the same technology as the first one. Mordith closed his eyes. It was beginning already. Where? He asked. The Centauri border, the Andromedan trade routes, and the home system of our primary shipyards. The message was clear. Humanity wasn't just announcing their return. They were demonstrating their reach. They could appear anywhere, anytime. with technology that made Imperial defenses useless. Chancellor, General Kexvar said urgently, we need to mobilize the fleet. If we strike now, before they can reveal more of their capabilities, ... Strike with what? Mordeth turned back to face the council. If one exploration ship can move instantly across a star system, what do you think their warships can do? What? Do you think 800 years of hatred and technological development has created? The room fell silent as the reality sank in. The Vorthic Empire had built its power on being the strongest, most advanced civilization in the galaxy. But that power had always depended on other species being weaker. Less advanced, less capable. Now they face something that might be their equal, or worse, something that might be their superior. There's something else, Dr. Velmaya said quietly. Something I found in the deepest archives, a message that was intercepted during the final battle over Earth. She activated the display one more time. Ancient audio filled the chamber, crackling with static. But the words were clear enough, spoken in old human language with a voice full of cold fury. You think you've won? You think you've destroyed us? But humans don't forget. We don't forgive. We survive? And someday, when you least expect it, we'll be back. And when that day comes, you'll learn what real power looks like. The message ended, leaving the chamber in dead silence. Mordeth sat back down heavily. For 8 centuries, the Empire had told itself that humanity was extinct, a footnote in history, a minor species that had briefly challenged them before destroying itself. But humans were patient, they were survivors, and they had been planning their return for a very long time. What do we do? General Kexvar asked, all his bluster gone. Mordeth looked around the table at the most powerful beings in the galaxy's most powerful empire. All of them looked scared. All of them were looking to him for answers he didn't have. We prepare, he said finally, and we pray that when humanity finally shows us what 8 centuries of preparation has created, they remember that some Vorthak opposed what was done to them. But deep in his heart he knew that prayer was probably hopeless. Humanity was back, and they hadn't forgotten anything. Captain Elena Rodriguez walked through the corridors of the Prometheus, past laboratories that would have amazed the greatest scientists of old Earth. The ship hummed with energy that came from sources the galaxy had forgotten existed. After 500 years of hiding, humanity had learned to do things that seemed impossible. Dr. Chun, Elena called as she entered the main research lab. Show me how far we've come. Dr. Rachel Chun looked up from a display that showed the quantum structure of space itself. As the ship's chief science officer, she had spent her entire life working with technology that other species couldn't even imagine. Captain, it's hard to explain without getting too technical, Dr. Chun said, gesturing to the swirling patterns on her screen. But basically, we learned to manipulate the foundation of reality itself. Elena nodded. She had heard this explanation before, but it never got old. While the rest of the galaxy had focused on building bigger guns and stronger shields, humanity had gone in a completely different direction. When the Vorthak tried to destroy us, Dr. Chun continued, they thought they were eliminating a weak species. They had no idea what they were actually unleashing. The display changed, showing images of the first human colonies after the exodus from Earth. Small, desperate settlements on dead worlds that nobody else wanted. Places where humans had to learn to survive or die. We didn't have the luxury of building an empire like the Vorthak, Dr. Chun explained. We had to be smarter, we had to be better. We had to learn things that other species had given up on as impossible. Elena watched as the display showed the progression of human technology over the centuries. Each generation had built on the discoveries of the previous one. Each breakthrough had led to even greater advances. The breakthrough came about 200 years ago, Dr. Chun said. We learned to manipulate quantum foam, the basic structure that underlies all of space and time. And that lets us do what exactly? Elena asked, though she knew the answer. Everything the Prometheus just demonstrated to the Vorthak. We can step outside normal space, move instantly across vast distances, manipulate gravity, even exist in multiple dimensions at once. Elena smiled grimly. The Vorthak had no idea what they were really dealing with. To them, the Prometheus looked like a single ship with advanced technology. The truth was far more complex. Dr. Chun, show me the real situation. The display changed again, and Elena felt the familiar mix of pride and sadness that always came with seeing the full scope of human civilization. A galaxy thought humanity was extinct. The reality was that humans had spread further and grown stronger than anyone could imagine. Dozens of star systems appeared on the display. Hidden colonies that had been built over centuries of careful expansion. Industrial worlds that produced ships and technology in secret. Research stations that had pushed the boundaries of science beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. 57 star systems, Dr. Chun said quietly. 2 billion humans, all connected by quantum gates that allow instant communication and travel across the galaxy. Elena studied the display. Each dot of light represented a world where humans had carved out a new life. Places where children grew up learning about Earth as a legend, but building something far greater than their ancestors had ever imagined. And our fleet? Over 3,000 ships, Captain. Everything from exploration vessels like the Prometheus to warships that could crack planets. Elena nodded. The Vorthak Empire had maybe 500 capital ships, and they considered themselves the dominant military power in the galaxy. They had no idea that humanity had been building in secret for centuries, but the real advantage wasn't in numbers. It was in technology that the rest of the galaxy couldn't understand or counter. Captain, Dr. Chun said, we're receiving reports from other contact zones. The plan is working perfectly. Elena had been wondering when the other shoe would drop. The encounter with Admiral Zexthara had been just the beginning. While the Vorthak were panicking about one human ship, humanity was revealing itself across the entire galaxy. What's the situation with the Centauri Federation? Elena asked. Contact. Established 3 hours ago. Their leadership is excited. They've been looking for an ally against the Vorthak Empire for decades. Elena wasn't surprised. The Centauri had always been the underdogs in galactic politics. The discovery that humanity not only existed but had advanced technology would seem like a gift from heaven to them. And the Andromedan Collective? They're being more cautious. Their government is calling for emergency sessions to discuss the implications. That was typical Andromedan behavior. They were peaceful by nature, but they also understood better than most how much this changed everything. Elena walked to the viewing port and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was waking up to a new reality. A reality where the balance of power had shifted in ways no one had expected. Captain, Dr. Chun said softly, there's something else. We're picking up increased military activity throughout Vorthak space. It looks like they're mobilizing their fleet. Elena turned back to face the scientist. This was the moment they had been preparing for. The moment when the Vorthak Empire would have to decide between accepting the new reality or trying to repeat their ancient mistake. Are they targeting our revealed positions? Some of their ships are moving toward the systems where we've made contact, but Captain their fleet movements are defensive. They're pulling ships back to protect their core worlds. Elena smiled. Admiral Zexthara was clearly a smart leader. She had recognized that attacking humanity would be suicide. But Elena wondered if the rest of the Vorthak government would be equally wise. Dr. Chun, open a channel to all our ships. It's time for the next phase. Elena walked back to the main display as Dr. Chun established communications with the hidden human fleet. Faces appeared on the screen from dozens of different ships, all waiting for her orders. Captains, Elena began, the galaxy now knows we exist. Some species will welcome us, others will fear us. The Vorthak Empire is mobilizing their fleet, but they seem to be taking a defensive position. She paused, looking at each face on the screen. These were the descendants of the survivors who had fled Earth 8 centuries ago. People who had grown up with stories of the genocide attempt and the long journey to rebuild. We've spent 800 years preparing for this moment. We've built ships that can cross the galaxy in minutes. We've developed weapons that can reshape space itself. We've created a civilization that spans dozens of star systems. Elena's voice grew harder. But we've also remembered why we had to hide in the first place. The Vorthic Empire tried to exterminate us once. If they try again, they'll discover what 8 centuries of human determination can accomplish. One of the other captains spoke up. Orders, Captain Rodriguez? Proceed to Phase 2. Begin revealing our true capabilities. Let the galaxy see what humanity has become. Elena watched as acknowledgments came back from ships across the galaxy. Soon the quantum gates would activate. Fleets that had been hidden for centuries would emerge from dark space. The galaxy would learn that humanity hadn't just survived. They had evolved into something far more powerful than anyone had imagined. Captain, Dr. Chun said, incoming transmission from the Vorthak home system. It's Admiral Zexthara. Elena smiled. The Admiral had probably been ordered to make contact again to try to understand what the Empire was really dealing with. Put her through. Admiral Zexthara appeared on the screen, and Elena could see the strain in the alien's expression. The past few hours had clearly been difficult for her. Captain Rodriguez, the Admiral began carefully, my government has asked me to inquire about your intentions. Our intentions are simple, Admiral, Elena replied. We want the galaxy to know that humanity survived. We want everyone to understand that we remember what was done to us. And we want to make sure it never happens again. Elena leaned forward. Slightly, the question, Admiral, is what your empire intends to do with this information. She could see the Admiral struggling with her response. Elena understood the position the woman was in. She was a military officer, but she was also smart enough to recognize that her empire was facing something beyond their ability to defeat. Captain, Admiral Zexthara said slowly, what would it take for there to be peace between our peoples? Elena considered the question. It was the right question, which suggested that at least some Vorthak leaders understood their situation. That's a conversation for another time, Admiral. For now, just know that humanity remembers everything. We forgive nothing. But we're willing to consider the possibility that not all Vorthak supported what was done to us. As the transmission ended, Elena looked out at the stars again. The galaxy was about to change in ways no one could predict. But for the first time, in 800 years, humanity was in control of its own destiny, and they were never going to be victims again. The day that changed the galaxy forever started quietly. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, watching the final preparations for what humanity had called Project Exodus for the past 50 years. 800 years of hiding were about to end in the most dramatic way possible. All stations report ready, Captain, Commander Park announced from his position. 57 gate systems are online and synchronized. Elena nodded, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. In the next few minutes, the galaxy would discover that humanity hadn't just survived. They had built something incredible while everyone thought they were extinct. Dr. Chun, what's the status on our observer ships? All positioned and ready, Captain. We have eyes on every major government in the galaxy. The Vorthak, Centauri, Andromedans, even the smaller independent systems, Elena smiled grimly. Today, those governments would learn what 8 centuries of human ingenuity could accomplish. They would also learn why trying to exterminate humanity had been the worst mistake the galaxy had ever made. Begin Phase 1, Elena ordered. Across the galaxy, something impossible started happening. In 57 different star systems, space itself began to shimmer and bend. Massive structures that hadn't been there moments before suddenly existed, as if they had been pulled from another dimension. The quantum gates were humanity's greatest achievement. Each one was the size of a small moon, built from materials that existed partially outside normal space. They could connect any 2 points in the galaxy instantly, allowing ships, people, and information to travel faster than the speed of thought. Captain, we're receiving reports from all contact points, Dr. Chun called out. The galaxy is reacting exactly as we predicted. Elena could imagine the chaos that was erupting across civilized space. Government officials staring at impossible readings. Military commanders trying to understand technology that made their most advanced systems look like stone tools. Scientists questioning everything they thought they knew about physics. What about the Vorthik response? Their fleet is holding position, but we're detecting massive communication traffic. They're trying to coordinate a response to something they can't understand. Elena had expected that. The Vorthik Empire had built their power on having better technology than everyone else. Discovering that humanity could manipulate space and time itself had to be terrifying for them. Time for Phase 2, Elena announced. The quantum gates activated fully, and the galaxy got its first real look at what humanity had become. Ships began emerging from the gates, not just a few vessels, but entire fleets. Hundreds of human ships appeared simultaneously across dozens of star systems, but these weren't ordinary ships. Each vessel demonstrated technology that shouldn't have existed. Ships that phased in and out of reality. Vessels that seemed to exist in multiple places at once. Craft that bent gravitational fields around them like toys. Captain, Commander Park reported, we're receiving panicked transmissions from across the galaxy. The Centauri are asking for immediate alliance talks. The Andromedans are requesting emergency diplomatic meetings. And the VORTHAK... What about them? High Chancellor Mordeth is requesting direct communication with you. He says it's urgent. Elena considered this. The leader of the empire that had tried to destroy humanity wanted to talk. That could mean several things, and most of them weren't good. Put him through. The main screen flickered to life, showing the leader of the Vorthik Empire. Elena had seen pictures of High Chancellor Mordeth before, but meeting him face-to-face was different. The alien looked older than she had expected, and there was something in his three eyes that might have been fear. Captain Rodriguez, Mordeth began, his voice carefully controlled. I believe we need to discuss the situation that has developed. Do we? Elena replied calmly. I thought your empire had already made its position on humanity quite clear. 800 years ago. She could see the alien leader flinch at the reminder. Good. Elena wanted him to remember exactly what his people had done. Captain, what happened centuries ago was ... a mistake. A terrible mistake that many of us have regretted. Many of you, Elena repeated, but not all. Mordeth's expression grew more strained. There are those in my government who believe that the old solution might still be applicable. Elena felt her blood turn cold. After seeing everything humanity had built, after witnessing technology that made their empire look primitive, some Vorthak leaders still thought they could repeat their genocide attempt. Chancellor, Elena said, her voice dropping to a dangerous quiet, I want you to understand something very clearly. The humans your empire tried to destroy 800 years ago no longer exist. We've become something far beyond what you remember. She gestured to Commander Park, who began transmitting data to the Vorthik ship. Elena wanted them to see exactly what they were dealing with. Those 57 quantum gates you're detecting? Each one can produce enough energy to crack a planet. Those ships emerging from them? They're built from materials that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. And the weapons they carry can manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe. Elena leaned forward, making sure the alien leader could see her expression clearly. If your empire tries to repeat its ancient mistake, you'll discover what 8 centuries of human determination and ingenuity can accomplish. And I promise you, Chancellor, you won't like the result. Mordeth was quiet for a long moment, clearly processing the implications of what Elena had just told him. When he spoke again, his voice was much smaller. What do you want from us? That's a very good question, Elena replied. What we want is simple. We want the galaxy to know that humanity survived. We want everyone to understand that we remember what was done to us. And we want to make sure that nothing like that ever happens again. She paused, watching the alien leader's reaction. But most importantly, we want justice for what your empire tried to do to us justice? Mordith asked nervously. The Vorthic Empire will undergo fundamental changes, Elena said firmly. Your government will abandon its supremacist ideology. Your military will be restructured under galactic oversight. And your people will learn the true history of what was done to humanity. Elena could see the Chancellor struggling with these demands. They essentially meant the end of the Vorthic Empire as it had existed for centuries. And if we refuse? Elena smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Then you'll discover what happened to the test planet we selected for our new weapons demonstration. She nodded to Dr. Chun, who transmitted another set of data to the Vorthic ship. Elena watched as Mordith's 3 eyes went wide with horror. That planet was uninhabited, Elena said calmly. It was also protected by gravitational fields that should have made it indestructible. Our new weapons turned it into cosmic dust in approximately 3 seconds. The Chancellor stared at the data for a long time. Elena could practically see his mind working, trying to find some way out of the impossible situation his empire faced. You're offering us survival in exchange for surrender, he said finally. I'm offering you the chance to evolve, Elena corrected. The galaxy is changing, Chancellor. Humanity is back and we're never going to be victims again. You can either adapt to the new reality or be swept aside by it. Elena stood up, signaling that the conversation was nearly over. You have 24 hours to give me your answer. After that, humanity will make the decision for you. As the transmission ended, Elena looked around her bridge. Her crew was watching her with expressions of pride and determination. They had all grown up hearing stories about the great genocide attempt. Now they were writing the final chapter of that story. Commander Park, send messages to all our allies. Let them know that the age of Vorthic dominance is over. The age of humanity has begun. Elena walked to the viewing port and looked out at the stars. Somewhere among those lights were billions of humans who had spent their entire lives preparing for this moment. Children who had learned to build impossible machines. Scientists who had unlocked the secrets of the universe. Warriors who had trained to protect their people from anyone who might try to destroy them again. The galaxy had thought humanity was extinct. Instead, they had become something far more powerful than anyone had imagined. And now, for the first time in 800 years, they were home. The Vorthic Empire would make their choice soon. But Elena already knew what that choice would be. When faced with extinction or evolution, most species chose to survive. And if they didn't? Well, humanity had spent 8 centuries learning how to make sure their enemies never got a second chance. To hurt them, the galaxy had a new order now. And humanity was writing the rules.